Hello learners, I am Dr. Arun Kumar, faculty member, School of Management, Shastra Deemd University. In this session, I am going to discuss about the research report. So we just now discussed about the contents of the research report, how to do the presentation, all that. And the one of the important element is that whenever your presentation is want to be very appealing, you need to use the effective use of graphic aids. So it's nothing but the usage of graphic aids can clarify complex points or emphasize a message. Used improperly or sloppily, they can distract, even mislead a reader. Graphic aids, aids work best when they are an integral part of the text. The graphic should always be interpreted in the text. This does not mean that the writer should exhaustively explain an obvious chart or table, but it does mean that the text should point out the key elements of any graphic aid and relate them to the discussion in progress. So now let's look into detail how the pictures or diagrams used to clarify complex points or emphasize a message in this through my inputs. Okay, so moving further, if you see how beautifully this table has been presented here. This table is whenever you take output using SPSS or any output, you will get just a report, but that has to be properly presented, meaningfully presented, and it should be easily understandable by the receivers. That's very, very important whenever you do a presentation. So in that context, there are several types of graphic aids may be useful in research reports, including as I was mentioning, tables, charts, maps, and diagrams. This session briefly covers the most common ones. I mean the tables and charts. The reader interested in other types of graphic material should consult more specialized sources. Now let me explain you how to do a present a table here. Tables are most useful, you all know, for presenting numerical information. You can see this table, how beautifully it has got presented, especially when several pieces of information have been gathered about each item discussed. For example, consider how hard it might be to follow the information with only narrative text. I think it is not appealing at all, and no graphical aids. Without that, I think you are not doing justification to your report. Using tables allows a writer to point out significant features without getting bogged down in detail. The body of the report should include only relatively short summary tables with comprehensive tables reserved for an appendix. Okay, so if you look at this table, this allows for simple reference from the text to the table. If the text includes many tables, a list of tables should be included just after the table of contents. And in title, the title should indicate the contents of the table and be completed enough to be intelligibly without referring to the text. Subheads and banner heads. The subheads contain the captions for the rows of the table, and the banner heads contain those for the columns. And when you talk about the footnotes, Any explanations or qualification for particular table entries or sections should be given in footnotes. Okay, you can see here the footnotes are given here. Source note: if a table is based on material from one or more secondary sources rather than on a new data generated by the projects, the sources should be acknowledged. Usually, if without acknowledgement, it is a kind of plagiarism. Okay. So tables in a survey research report typically follow the format shown. I think you can see the format here. And this is an example of cross tabulation, the demographics with survey response. You can see here that is been given very beautifully depicted here. So I was mentioning about the table number should be there for a table. Title should be there for the table. Stub heads and banner heads should be there for the table. Footnotes should be there and source notes should be there for the table. Next one is, you can see the cross tabulation done for a table here. I think you can very well you can see the age group versus the online activity. These are the two parameters has been compared and it was clearly presented through the table form. This is a great example. Okay, you can see here like this you're supposed to present your data while doing your presentation. And next one is let's talk suppose an airline asks a question about customer satisfaction with its baggage handling service. In addition to showing a simple frequency for each category, most research analysis would cross-tabulate answers to the baggage handling questions with several demographics, variables such as gender, income, education, and age to present multiple cross-tabulations individually in separate table requires considerable space. Thus, many research reports use a space-saving format with either stubheads for rows or bannerheads for columns to allow the reader to view several cross-tabulations at the same time. So this, I think this one is a great example. You can see the subhead format to include several cross tabulation in one table. Okay, the age and the different demographics has been presented here, and also it has been compared with the other demographic characteristics of the respondents. Okay, moving further, let's understand charts. Actually, if you look at charts, charts translate numerical information into visual form so that relationship may be easily grasped. The the accuracy of the numbers is reduced to gain this advantage. Each chart should include the following elements. You can see here. One is the figure number. The chart should be numbered in a separate series from tables. The numbers allow for easy reference from the text. If there are many charts, a list of them should be included after the table of contents. And also, if you look at the title should describe the contents of the chart and be independent of the text explanation. The number and the title may be placed at the top or the bottom of the chart. The next one is the explanatory legends. Enough explanation should be put on the chart to spare the reader a need to look at the accompanying text. Such explanations should include labels for access, scale numbers, and a key to the various quantities being graphed. And also the source and footnotes, any secondary sources for the data should be acknowledged. Footnotes may be used to explain items. Also, they are less common for charts than for tables. So you can see the charts. You can take the example, a simple pie chart with slices representing the frequency of sales at each price level. Okay, so this is a great example. You should look into it, how to depict a chart. If you look at the charts are subject to distortion, whether unintentional or deliberate. So whenever you alter the scale changes the reader impression of the data. A particularly severe kind of distortion comes from treating unequal intervals as if they were equal. This generally results from a deliberate, attempt to distort data. And you can see this exhibit, which shows, someone has attempted to make the rise of the chart more dramatic by compression of the portion in which the data showed little and not change. So, basically, I advocate you just go for a simple pie chart in your presentation, or you can go for a pie chart with more, variables that can be done. So this is a great example here. So one of the most, useful kinds of charts is the pie chart. Which shows the composition of some total quantity at a particular time. You can see here on the each angle or slice is proportional to its percentage of the whole. Companies often use pie charts to show how revenue were used or the composition of the sales. You can see here in this chart. Each of the segments should be labeled with its description and percentage. The research reporter should not try to include too many small slices, which will be, literally clumsy. About 6 slices is a typical maximum. I can say that. I honestly, go for. I will not go more than that. Maybe maximum 6 slices. And when you look at the, you can also see this, how beautifully this pie chart has been presented here. And moving further, let's talk about the line graphs. Now, when you talk about line graphs, are useful for showing the relationship of one variable to another. The dependent variable generally is shown on the vertical axis and the independent variable on the horizontal axis. The most common independent variable for such charts is time, but it is by no means the only one. And so I can show you some examples of line graphs. Yeah, simple line graph. You can see here the two variables are taken, spending on prescription drugs. In one axis it is taken year, the other axis is taken billions of dollars. You can see this, how beautifully it got presented in this simple line graph. Variations of the line graph also are useful. The multi-line graph, when you look at this, you can see the multi-line graph. The multi-line graph shows the relationship of more than one, independent variable, dependent variable with that of the independent variable. The line for each dependent variable should be in a different color or pattern. and should be clearly labeled. That's very important. Okay, the writer should not try to squeeze in too many variables. That is not. It will not look nice, basically. This can quickly lead to confusion rather than clarification. Um, so that's about the multiple line graph. Next, moving further, let's talk about the bar chart. Okay, so what is this? Bar chart is all about. The bar chart shows changes in the value of the dependent variable. You can see that it is plotted on the vertical axis at discrete intervals of the independent variable. On the horizontal axis, okay, dependent variable is plotted on the vertical axis, and independent variable is plotted on the horizontal axis, and it's very clearly depicted here. So this is a simple bar chart which I have shown you here. Like this, you can also do your presentation in your research report. Okay, like the line graph, the bar chart format has variations. I can talk about this one, subdivided bar chart. A common variant is the subdivided bar chart. It is much like a stratum chart, showing the composition of the whole quantity. The multiple bar chart, shows how multiple variables are related to the primary variable. In each of these cases, each bar or segment of the bar needs to be clearly identified with a different color or pattern. The research reporter should not use too many divisions or dependent variables. Too much detail obscures the essential advantage of charts is to make a relationship easy to grasp. Okay, and I was showing you the multiple bar chart. When you talk about the multiple bar chart, so it is a good one. You can see this here. The multiple bar chart shows how multiple variables are related to the primary variable. In each of these cases, each bar or segment of the bar needs to be clearly identified with a different color or pattern. The writer should not use too many divisions or dependent variable. Too much detail obscures the essential advantage of the charts, and which is to make a relationship easy to grasp. So hope you guys will use this format for your research report presentation. And finally we'll also discuss about the oral presentation. See, the conclusion and recommendation of the most research reports are presented orally as well as in writing. The purpose of an oral presentation is to highlight the most important findings of a research report and provide clients or line managers with an opportunity to ask questions. The oral presentation may be as simple as a short video conference with the manager at the client organization's locations, or as formal as a report to the company board of directors. In either situation, the key to effective presentation is preparation. I tell you, I'm sharing my experience. So that's very, very important whenever you do a communication. Communication specialist often suggests that a person preparing an oral presentation begin at the end. In other words, while preparing a presentation, the researcher should think about what he or she wants the client to know when it has been completed. The researcher should select the three or most important findings for emphasis and rely on the written report for a full summary. The researcher also needs to be ready to defend the results of the research because people may pose question. This is not the same as being defensive. Instead, the researcher should be prepared to deal in a confident, competent manner with the questions that arise. Remember that even the most reliable and valid research project is worthless if manager who must act on its results are not convinced of its importance. As with written reports, a key to effective oral presentation is adapting to the audience. Delivering an hour-long formal speech when a 10 minutes discussion is called for will reflect poorly on both the presenter and the reporter. Am I right? Most of you have witnessed that. Lecturing or reading to the audience is sure to impede communication at any level of formality. I'm sure about it. Presenters should often, especially, as being a management students like you, the presenter should refrain from reading prepared text word for word. By relying on a brief notes, familiarity with the subject, and as much rehearsal as the occasion calls for, presenters will foster better communication. Presenter, should, in my experience, avoid research jargon, you know, and use short, familiar words. So, presenter should, maintain eye contact. That's very important with the audience and repeat the main points because the audience cannot go back and replay what the speaker has said. An oral presentation is often organized around a standard format. Tell them what you are going to tell them. That's very important. And tell them what you just told them. That's very important. Okay. So the graphic and the visual aids can be useful in an oral presentation as in written one. Presenter can choose from variety of media, slides, overhead projectors, and on-screen computer-generated graphics are useful for larger audience. For smaller audience, the researcher may put the visual aids on posters or flip charts. Another possibility is to make copies of the chart for each participant. That's better, possibly as a supplement to one of the other forms of presentation. Whatever medium is chosen, each visual aid should be designed to convey a simple attention-getting message that supports a point on which the audience should focus its thinking, as they do in written presentation. Presenter should interpret graphics for the audience. The best slide are easy to read and interpret. Large typeface, multiple colors, bullets that highlight, and other artistic device can enhance the readability of charts. And also, this is very important, using gestures during presentation also help convey the message and make presentation more interesting. So here I have highlighted some of the tips given here. Open up your arms to embrace your audience. Keep your arms between your waist and shoulders. Drop your arms to your sides when not using them. Avoid quick and jerky gestures which make you appear nervous. Hold gestures longer than you would in normal conversation. Vary gestures, switch from hand to hand, and other times use both hands or no hands. Don't overuse gestures. Some gestures are used to draw attentions to the points illustrated by visual aids. So that's about my inputs on gesture. Okay. So To summarize, slides are often helpful. Images, photos, graphs, infographics may also helpful you to sustain the interest of your audience. Think about dress, mannerism, gesture, and the most important thing, which I have not said, that is voice modulation, crust and trough. Whenever when you're serious and you want to emphasize something, you have to increase your voice. That gives you a great impression, and also it projects your confidence, and which one you want to emphasize. You have to modulate. That's a mere practice. You can develop that. Your voice modulation, speak audibly, clearly, without distracting mannerism, and at the right speed. Don't to like a bullet trying to go fast. Be slow and steady, and make sure you reach the audience who are attending your presentation, and they should get that's the ultimate outcome. They should have fundamental clarity, and they should get convinced about your presentation. Establish, as I said earlier, eye contact, varying the length of the sentence, varying your tone of voice, and also the rate of flow of information. Don't be too fast. Rehearse, keep rehearsing until you feel, comfortable about your presentation. Okay, so that's all about the research report, the written report, content, and how to do your visual aid presentation and your oral presentation. And I think I honestly given you a comprehensive picture about what is required for an effective presentation in terms of written as well as in terms of oral presentation. Hope all of you enjoyed my session. Thank you so much. Have a good day.